cognitive decline is not something that happens overnight. Many times there's little tiny little bits of symptoms. There's some changes that are slow to the point that it becomes a new normal. But what if there were little signs along the way that you can dig your teeth into and say, let me try something to either stop, slow down, or completely reverse cognitive decline. Are you interested? Because I've got the solution for you. Because today in the classroom, and by the way, it's a new year, so we're going to try different things for 2026. We have our brain whisperer, Dr. John Silva. After taking a break for the holidays, we are back and at it again because neurofeedback training has been something that has been life-changing for me. And I am so excited every time Dr. John Silva comes into the classroom because he will help us understand some of the things that we think might be normal, might be telltale signs that something is happening. So he's going to take us from some natural lifestyle changes or strategies through neurofeedback and beyond. So today we're going to be talking about how to embrace these cognitive issues as something that you can do something about. So get your paper, get your pencils, because we are going to learn and grow together. Take lots of notes, by the way, because I will. And when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here waiting for you. Hi, my name is Lillian McDermott, and I am a certified life coach, a certified holistic cancer coach, and the host of the Lillian McDermott radio show Classroom. If this is your first time in the classroom, please know I've been waiting for you. And Happy New Year. This is a safe place where you can go when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide natural ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening, as well as my viewing friend, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Well, today we have our brain whisperer, Dr. John Silva, functional neurology, whatever you want to call him. He is amazing. He helped me with some issues after a car accident that I thought the new normal was going to be costing me 4 hours extra of research for every 1 hour that I did for the classroom. But because of my story and my journey, I said, come on in, Dr. Silva, because we want everybody to learn about this option with you. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am grateful that Dr. John Silva is here to do just that. Welcome back to the classroom and happy 2026. This is the first time we see each other.
It is, yes. It's always wonderful to be back in the classroom, but especially at the beginning of a new year. So I'm looking forward to this year.
Well, let's talk about this. Yeah, let's talk about this because, as we enter the new year, many of us say, okay, I want to change this. I want to change this. So let's talk about cognitive decline changes that we can make that are simple or whatever else you want to talk about today.
Yeah, sure. As I've phrased it before, a new year, a new you.
Yep.
Let's start with the most important part of a new you, which is your brain. As we've discussed many times before, just generally speaking, if you really take the time to stop and think about it, and most people don't until they have a suspected problem of their brain, or like you have had a significant head trauma that will then start to cause cognitive issues or anxiety or PTSD. But for the rest of us, we don't really stop to think about our brain at any point in our life until one of those issues arises, unfortunately, when we really should be looking at our brain no matter what our health challenge might be or what symptoms we may be experiencing, but especially as we're going to discuss today, as it relates to cognitive issues, cognitive decline. So if you're looking to create a new you for the new year, 2026, then brain is definitely a first place to start. And I meant to mention to you earlier, Lillian, before we started the podcast, for those of you tuning in, stay until the end. I'd like to offer everyone the ability to do a comprehensive cognitive performance test. And I'll describe a little bit more about how that works. It'll be free of charge. Talk about a great way to look to see where you stand, no matter what your age. Even if you suspect you have no problems, but you just want to see, hey, am I in the average range for my age, gender? Am I above average or am I below average, which of course we want to catch and make sure we do something about. But yeah, we've got some really, really cool tools now that can be done from the convenience of home, and we can test for a variety of different things. So yeah, let's be sure we wrap
This
up the
is
call
gonna, yeah,
today's
this is
webinar.
gonna open this up for you worldwide because I know that in the past you've dealt with people from all over the world, but when it comes to the QEEG, that's a little bit difficult to do. You were doing the brain mapping, right? And
Mhm.
then now that you can do, is it the same as you did for the summit when you were with us?
Something along those lines, yeah. So what were you referring to? And for those, again, maybe new to this podcast, so Lily was referring to a QEEG, which stands for quantitative EEG or electroencephalogram. It's a mouthful. But EEGs just historically have been around since the 1930s. They're a way to measure our brain function, basically the electricity in our brain, the brain waves in action. So our brains function through what are called our brain waves. And this is all measurable, has been measurable in the medical field, like I said, for decades. Quantitative EEG is a little bit different than you might get, say, in a hospital setting after a concussion injury or head injury, or if you have a suspect of any epilepsy or seizures, they'll do a traditional medical EEG. And what it involves is simply putting a cap, typically, that has multiple sensors on the head. And these sensors don't emit anything. They're just sensors that are reading, analyzing brainwave activity in real time. That information gets recorded, and then using computer science and software, we can interpret all that data to get a sense of how a person's brain is functioning. Okay, so a little bit different than, say, an imaging scan that is typically done after a concussion injury, where they may do a CT scan or an MRI looking for any lesions or inflammation. That's still, again, all part of a good workup, but that's just looking at your brain from an anatomical or structural standpoint. More importantly, in fact, in my opinion, most importantly, is how's your brain functioning? Because the function of your brain is missed and not seen on your typical scans. And that's where we have diagnostics like EEG, quantitative EEG, which is just a different interpretation, analysis of a traditional medical EEG. Now, there's others out there too. There's what's called functional MRI. There's SPECT scan. So those of you tuning in who have ever heard of Dr. Daniel Amen, he's been all over television over the last couple of decades, written several books. Call him the brain whisperer too. He's the brain doctor. In fact, who I first started tuning into when I really was delving down that rabbit hole in my fascination of our brain. I would see him on PBS and follow him, and he has several clinics along with his providers throughout the country. And you can do a SPECT scan, rather expensive, but nonetheless, you can look at the function of your brain as it relates to blood flow. But in the meantime, for the rest of us that maybe can't afford $3,000 to $5,000 for a SPECT scan, we can do quantitative EEG, which essentially gives us the same vital information. How is your brain functioning in the here and now? And especially as it might relate as to what we're going to discuss today, cognitive decline and cognitive issues. You need to know what your baseline is. And then from there, of course, we have a number of different interventions. And the great thing about this technology now is it's rapidly accelerating. It's becoming more user-friendly, more accessible, more affordable, to the point now, as you mentioned, we can actually start to do these QEEGs right from the convenience and comfort of home.
Amazing.
So I can remotely access your tablet or a computer that I provide you, and we can do a QEEG without having to go to a clinic. And there's not a lot of clinics that do QEEG. For some people, they have to travel hours to a clinic to do just that. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's getting exciting for 2026. I'm looking forward to it.
You know, it's amazing because there's so many different ways that we can get ahead of decline, whether it's muscle decline, cognitive decline, you know, your lungs, whatever it is. but when you make that decision to get ahead of it and say, I want to focus on prevention as opposed to reversal, which is much harder than prevention,
Mhm.
and then reducing recurrence, which is also, it takes a lot of effort, but worth it. Very well worth it. But when you can do something that, because I remember driving over to your clinic to having my test, and it was worth every minute of my time to drive down there. But it's not possible for everybody to do this. So I was glad to hear that you were going to be at the summit back then when we were doing the summit together, that you were going to be able to bring this technology to the people there and do it in a like do a mini one because people are there to listen and learn and grow and all that, not necessarily to spend an hour or so doing testing. So it was great. It was perfect. So I love the fact that now that you can do this, still you can continue doing this, and you're doing it at no cost. So, so that I want to dive deeper into that. Do you want people to text me at 407-373-5959 and I can give them your contact information? Is that a part of the 45-minute session that you do for the Lillian McDermott radio show
So
classroom?
moving forward, yeah, it would still be part of the 45 minutes. It wouldn't be the QEEG, just so there's no confusion here. It would be cognitive performance testing. So let's discuss that since we're,
Okay,
you know,
yeah, what is
this
different?
topic is cognitive decline. So first, what is cognitive decline? I mean, most of us have a basic understanding of that. And, I always refer back to Google these days. I mean, who's not using the internet to search for anything, whether it's a recipe or something that maybe you think conceptually, but want to know the details or dive really deep down that rabbit hole. So for instance, just I know what cognitive decline is, but I'm curious, what does Google say? And now just about all your web browsers have AI already incorporated into it. I don't even have to download an AI app or search for an AI web page. It's just already there, especially if you're using Google Chrome, which is what I'm looking at right now. So it gives you a paragraph, an AI overview, but basically, as this AI describes as a noticeable drop in thinking abilities like memory, language, and problem solving. So let's elaborate on that. So common things that I hear in my practice, and I've been practicing for over 24 years now, forgetfulness. You're starting to notice more moments of forgetfulness. It could be just the simple things throughout your day. Perfect example. People are going through the house, just taking care of the daily chores, taking care of activities, and they set out across their house saying, all right, I'm going to stop in this room, take care of that, go to the next room. Yeah, I'm going to take care of some laundry in there. And they walk into the first room just within literally seconds or a minute and have already forgotten the first thing that they were setting out to do. And the common thing is, oh, let me retrace my steps and see if I can jog my memory. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. If you are noticing that, regardless of age, and by the way, I do want to stress age. This is regardless of age these days. Now, this was kind of reserved for older people years ago, but I'm starting to see, I call them kids, kids as young as 20s, 30s, experiencing what we would typically see in previous decades in people in their 60s and 70s. So this is a really scary fact. And we're seeing more of this now. Kids are they're having a tough time just remembering basic stuff. So no matter your age, if you're noticing that and it's becoming repetitive, that's a sign. So look at these as all signs of an underlying brain issue that needs to be at least looked at from a preliminary overview, and we can dive deeper into things like QEEG. So the cognitive performance test, as we open up that discussion, again, we can finish out the conversation today or the webinar with more details on that. But basically what we do, it's an at-home testing that you do, and I usually recommend people do it over the course of several days. Take your time with it. These tests are challenging, and if anyone's ever had anything similar to this, and most people haven't, I work with people who have been diagnosed with various types of dementias, cognitive decline. And what's baffling to me is they've gone to either their primary care physician, maybe even a neurologist, and along this journey, no one took the time to do some basic cognitive testing. The typical thing is here, draw a clock. That's so outdated nowadays. Yes, it's a rudimentary test to see how far someone is down that slippery slope of dementia, as I call it. But if you're at that point where you can't draw a clock, in the different times and the hands on the clock, you're probably too far gone to begin with. We need to know in using validated tests. So the tests that I use are validated tests. They're available to all healthcare practitioners. Now, typically in the past, you would have to go to a clinic to have these done, but now you can do them from the convenience and comfort of home with a tablet or a computer. And basically, I have 11 cognitive tests. In fact, I'll read them out to you right now. Hop over to one of my recent clients who went through this test. And I tell people, take one test a day. Each test usually takes about 15 minutes, and they are a little challenging. Any cognitive test that you're going to do with any provider is designed to challenge your brain. So I always emphasize before people set out to do these tests with me, don't get stressed by them. Don't get anxious. It's not like you're back in school trying to pass SATs or get a good score in your
Stress
SAT.
anxiety, that's test
Finals.
anxiety. Yeah,
This
yeah.
is just for internal purposes only. It doesn't count for anything other than you knowing where you stand for your age and if anything needs to be done or addressed. But the 11 cognitive tests, we look at attention, short-term memory, what's called auditory short-term memory, working memory, auditory working memory, sequential memory. Make sure we come back to that one because that's another common one too. List acquisition, filtering, episodic memory, executive function, another big one, and spatial sorting. So very comprehensive testing, and you'll have a score that shows you whether you're in range, above range, or below the average range on those 11 cognitive tests. And sometimes we may not do all 11. We'll just hone on the ones that person knows that they're specifically having a struggle with. But this can all be done from home now, and it gives you a nice baseline. So again, anyone listening into this webinar today, if no matter your age, where you think you might be or not be, why not look at your new year and say, all right, where am I cognitively? But especially, again, if you're experiencing those symptoms. So coming back to that, the forgetfulness. I was talking about sequential memory. Again, that's basically memorization of a list, a sequence of things. And it could be that simple example of saying, in my mind, I'm going to go into these rooms and do these tasks. And you get lost at step one or step two. Or someone gives you a verbal instruction. Hey, can you go do this for me and then take care of that chore later? And if you didn't write it down, then you're lost. Or for some people, they do write it all down and they forget their list at home. These are all just little examples, but so many of us kind of giggle about it, they brush it off.
Yep.
It's because everyone else around me, my friends, my family, they're experiencing the same thing. The reality is we shouldn't be experiencing. Now, yeah, from time to time, it's likely to have moments of forgetfulness, but not if you're experiencing this on a regular basis. Okay.
So I want to ask a question here because I think many of us have experienced walking into a room and going, oh, got to retrace my steps. What was it that I needed? Oh, I walked to the kitchen 3 times, and how much of that is cognitive decline versus distraction? We live in such a busy world. We have like sensory overload. There's radio, there's podcasts, there's music, there's games, there's news. I mean, we at our fingertips.
Yep.
How much of it is, multitasking and not training your brain to really focus?
Good question. So yeah, what that comes down to, and as I mentioned, we have a test for it, is called executive function.
Okay.
And under the umbrella of executive function, you have things like attention, categorization, decision making, motivation, and problem solving. So these are all just cognitive functions that we kind of categorize and group, but it all falls into executive processing. So yes, you can be easily distracted, or some people can be, but you shouldn't be experiencing that. You should be able to stay on task, do it efficiently, remember everything, not forgetting along the way. But in fact, that's how usually these symptoms or these signs of cognitive decline, cognitive issues start, is when we're younger. I mean,
yeah.
By this point, everyone's heard of the diagnosis of ADHD or ADD, attention deficit disorder, or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And I work with a lot of adults. They're in their 30s, 40s, 50s. They're finally seeking out help or getting the official diagnosis of something that they know that, and they felt they struggled with since they were kids, but maybe their parents just never viewed it from that perspective, or they just never took the time to have their child evaluated. But meanwhile, they've struggled their whole adult life getting through college or getting through their careers, and they're finally taking a look at what's going on here. And it typically starts with that inability to stay attentive, to stay focused, and concentrate on whatever our task might be at that moment. And as far as multitasking,
That's a
I was always
lie. No
being
one's
able
a
to
good
multitask.
multitasker. We all think we might be, but we're not.
In reality, you're not. Our brains aren't designed that way. To do it efficiently, again, yes, you want to have things to do, but your brain needs to focus on the one thing and maintain that focus. In fact, when we bring all this together, we call this, there's many names for it, but one of them is the flow state. People describe it as they just go through their day, whether it's their career, their work, their hobbies, and things just come effortlessly, efficiently. They can stay on task. They don't feel drained by the end of the day or within 1 or 2 hours of working. And again, I'm talking just whether you're on a computer for your own purposes or you're on a computer for work or whatever your career is, that flow state where everything just comes efficiently. And that's where a lot of people are seeking out to do, but they're having a tough time because they can't even pay attention to the basic daily tasks. So yeah, forgetfulness, attention, focus, all these things are all grouped under cognitive functions of our brain. Okay, and there's many more. And in fact, we can go so far with QEEG. So again, we talked about cognitive testing, which can be done from home. But if we really want to go even a step further, we can actually measure the brainwave activity to see where there may be a so-called breakdown of the specific neural networks, as I like to call them, that provide us the ability to do math, to be able to speak, to be able to visually process what we're taking in through sight, to be able to have memory, long-term, short-term, what we call working memory. We've come so far in neuroscience with QEEG that we can actually map out these neural networks and see where there's deficiencies in the of those specific networks. So we can look at reading comprehension, and I can tell you, every QEEG that I do, every 10, I probably have 8 of those 10 where that neural network that reading comprehension is broken down on somebody to some degree. And people will usually nod their head and go, yeah, I have a tough time trying to get through a couple of paragraphs without having to go back and reread because I didn't quite get what I was reading, or I was easily distracted, or my mind was wandering, especially books, because most people are so reading things on a screen now. Whether you're reading it on a screen or a book, it's a common thing that I hear. They're having to reread. And again, for a lot of people, this started when they were just children. Yeah. And they couldn't pass grades, they couldn't do well on their exams. And those that did find coping mechanisms, whether they did it consciously or subconsciously, it was a struggle for them. Life should not be a struggle when it comes to these sorts of things.
But when you're doing the neurofeedback, which is the solution for the deficiencies that we're experiencing, when you're doing neurofeedback, at what point will that person who has to read over and over and over again, or keep retracing themselves, at what point will neurofeedback help somebody, or is this something that's just part of their personality? Is there I don't want to say that the brain is broken because we just are rewiring the brain as we've talked about in the classroom, but can we rewire having to read over and over again? Can we rewire ruminating? Can we rewire, having that sequencing issues? Can we rewire that?
Most definitely, yeah. As long as you haven't gone too far down that, again, I refer to that slippery slope of cognitive decline or dementia. And I've worked, unfortunately, with several clients, and usually these clients are brought into my practice out of desperation of a loved one. They're usually their spouse, because the person, when they've gotten that far, and again, for those of you listening in, you may have seen someone go through this process, whether it's your grandparent, your parents, someone close to you. It's sad because, and sometimes it's a rapid progression from the day-to-day forgetfulness and things that we're discussing today, and all of a sudden within months, it's just this rapid decline. And we can only do so much with neurofeedback or any other interventions that I provide. So ultimately, to answer your question, Lily, yes, when we catch it early enough, neurofeedback can take care of a majority of that because it is the most direct way that I know that exists and has existed to, like you said, rewire our brain, take care of those faulty neural networks that are responsible for your lack of ability to stay attentive and focused or your short-term memory. Working memory is another perfect example. So people will be in a conversation and they forget basic words of an object or a place or a person that's all over mainstream, and and they're looking for that word and they get stumbled on, and the people around them will have to help them find that word, or what we call word retrieval. That's a cognitive function of our brain. Okay, and so if you're noticing this more and more frequently, that is evidence. Again, just check off another sign or symptom of your brain not functioning optimally. It needs to be looked at. So word retrieval, again, forgetfulness, these sorts of things are telltale signs. So point being is, don't let it get to that point where you are now in that dementia stage and rapidly deteriorating. And for some people, it can rapidly, for some, it's just this gradual process. And again, the beginning stages, people chuckle about it internally. They laugh with others. Oh, I forgot that word. I forgot that actor. He's lower mainstream, but I forgot his name. Okay, or just random things. It's amazing what I hear from people, and it's becoming more frequent. I mean, they almost to the point where they're like almost anxious to have conversations because they are forgetting quite a bit with their day-to-day conversations. That word retrieval.
Yeah, my mom was diagnosed with dementia relatively young. She was in her 70s. And I remember as it progressed, and of course I didn't know then what I know now, but as it progressed, she would say to me quite frequently, and I know that she didn't understand that that's what she was doing. She would say, she would forget something and she would catch herself. And she goes, Lily, I think I'm losing my memory. And then I say, you know what, mommy, everybody does. And I already knew that she was diagnosed with it, but I didn't know then that I could have done this with her. I didn't know then that 70% of people that are 30% of people that are diagnosed with dementia have dementia. That other 70% could be medications, misdiagnosis, and then they're given, they believe now that they have dementia, or that whatever is heavy metals or whatever that needs to be cleared from their body is still progressing along the way. But I remember, my mom saying that to me, and I wish I had this tool for her. And for those of you who are watching today, this is a tool for you. So I want to encourage you to go to whenyouneedafriend.com to learn more about other classes that we've had. You can go to my YouTube channel and check out Dr. Silva's playlist, because we've talked about from ADHD all the way to depression, anxiety, dementia, all through the whole thing, even mold. And I want to let you know that we've done 2 webinars with Dr. Silva. We're going to be doing another one at the beginning of the year, probably before March or so. We're going to have another webinar together. But the last webinar that we did together is great. I mean, the first one was great too, but the last one we did, we're giving away. And so if you are interested in learning about the rewiring of the brain, that was the 2.0 that we did. You can text me at 407-373-5959, and I will send you that link. I will send it to you. And then also, if you're interested in spending more time with Dr. Silva and having an evaluation or a conversation with him, you can text me at 407-373-5959 or email me at lily@whenyouneedafriend.com, so that you'll have someone, helping you get to that next step, reaching out to Dr. Silva, getting that appointment. I'll send you the link so that you can make that appointment. So there's so many different ways that you can get on top of it. ahead of cognitive decline, which is the title of today's class. So
Mhm.
I want to encourage you to go to whenyouneedafriend.com. While there, please subscribe, like, and follow me on all social media. And when I say subscribe to the website, that's what you need to do. And that way you'll know anytime that anyone is on the classroom, you'll get a notification if that's what you choose in your preferences. Go check out the conversations that we've had with our sponsors. Check out our sponsors, support them the way that they're supporting the classroom. We're also working on getting events planned for the future. So check out if there's any events that we're doing, and you'll find those out in the blog. One last thing is you can check out all my Shop Now page, and you can become you can go to the Lily Approve Shop Now bags and check out all the different things that I do for living the life that I want to live. At my age, most people are, they're considered senior. I can't believe that, but I am. But I want, when I turn 50, my declaration was, I want my next 50 years to be better than my first. And that is my commitment to myself. And I hope that you can make that commitment for yourself in 2026. And bare minimum, if you want to get a baseline of where you're at today, make that decision right now at the beginning of 2026. And I will help you with that journey. Dr. Silva will help you with that journey. We'll take this journey together. You're not alone. One last thing is I want to encourage you to become a student in the classroom, whether it's a dollar donation, $1,000 donation, a one-time or a recurring, whatever you can do to help us grow, please do so. Whether it's your time, your talent, your treasure, I'm so excited to be a part of this journey, this cognitive journey, whether it's ADHD, depression, anxiety, or you just want to bring up your game. Maybe you're a great performer and you want to perform for running or pole vaulting or chest or whatever it is that you want to do. This is a way that you can tweak the brain. And Dr. Silva, I am so grateful to you that we got reconnected after 12 years of you teaching me about avasia and frequency and all of that. And here we are once again working together, which I just love. And I want to share with you, while you were talking about, the old ways of cognitive decline and doing the clock, I want to let you know that I did my own clock. So did I do good?
He looks good.
I hope I did good. Okay, so, but I know that I'm just being silly right now, but to some people that are scared that this might be their fate, just know that people that are diagnosed with dementia, 30% really have true dementia. The only way you know if you have true dementia is to measure the size of your brain, and that usually happens after an autopsy, right? And but 70% of people, if you're experiencing cognitive decline, 70%, and you don't know if you're part of that 70%, Dr. John Silva can help you. Neurofeedback is amazing. So what do you have to say about this? And this statistic was given to me by Dr. David Perlmutter, by the way.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I've followed a lot of his work over the years. Yeah.
Yeah. He's
Um,
a world-renowned neurosurgeon,
Other docs,
neurologist. Yeah.
Dr. Daniel Amen,
Yep.
Dr. Perlmutter, they'll all agree in any of these neuroscience. Dr. Russell Blaylock,
Hmm.
another great one that I've learned a lot from over the years. They say by the time we are recognizing these symptoms that we're talking of cognitive decline or even dementias, it's been estimated 10, 20 years in the making of our brain already starting to deteriorate. And when I say deterioration, not from a structural standpoint, yes, that can happen. We can actually see measurable loss of volume of the brain or decreased blood flow. But what the type of deterioration I'm talking about is that, again, those neural networks not working efficiently. And again, this is measurable through QEEG diagnostic technology. But the point being is 10 to 20 years by the time you get to that point where you're diagnosed or it's gotten so bad that you need to start seriously looking at it. And this is where people become anxious, afraid. Again, now they're usually seeking help from the people around them because they're having a difficult time with just their day-to-day affairs, constantly forgetting stuff, misplacing stuff, missing appointments. And people then start to develop depression and anxiety. And just while we're on that topic, so again, I always like to look at big picture. Our brain is responsible for our cognitive functions, which is the topic of today, and we've discussed a number of those cognitive functions. And again, in neuroscience, we've been able to identify and map out all the different regions of the brain, this part of your brain, for instance. And I'll just give you an example. Up here, what we call the left frontal cortex, okay? That is where most of our working memory is processed. If we come back here to the left temporal region, that's a lot of our language comprehension. So we've been able to identify where all this is processed. We can actually see those neural networks on acute EEG. But the point being is at least take the first basic steps. And as I mentioned earlier, when we open today's conversation, reach out to Lily. Let's set up a discussion at no cost with you through a Zoom call or a phone call, preferably Zoom, because I'd like to share with you. In fact, what I'm looking at right now is a functional chart. In fact, when we were at the event back in November, one of my slides was what we call a 10-20 correlations of function chart. It's a top-down view look of the head and brain, and it shows you all the different regions and the labels that we put on these regions. And it shows you the primary cognitive, emotional, and behavioral functions that we know to be processed there. So coming back to my point is, we're talking about cognitive, but realize our brain is also our emotional well-being. Our emotions are derived from our brain and how our brain functions. So if you're suffering with overwhelming stress, anxiety, panic, depression, any degree of depression, and of course now in medical science, medicine, they diagnose all these things to nth degrees. They have all types of diagnoses for anxiety, general anxiety disorder, social anxiety disorder, you name it, depression, multiple types of depression. What it all comes down to, doesn't matter what the specific diagnosis is, that's for the medical field to prescribe you a appropriate therapy or medication. It's about what's going on in your brain that is causing that emotional instability. So if you already have had a diagnosis from an emotional standpoint, or you know you're struggling, maybe haven't been officially diagnosed, or had any interventions for things like anxiety or depression, it's a good sign that you probably are suffering some cognitive issues, whether realized or not, because it's all coming from the same place, all right? So again, cognitive abilities, emotional, and behavioral. Our brain and how our brain operates drives our behaviors, moment to moment, day to day, throughout an entire lifetime. And examples of this is how you interact with others. Do you get easily frustrated, agitated, aggressive? I mean, I see people that, just like that, with any little stressor in their day-to-day life, they just get aggravated or they shut down. This is not all part of good human behavior, especially when you're interacting with others. And what people also don't realize is it's, even though it may not be in a social interaction, how are you behaving in your own mind? In other words, your thoughts. Are your thoughts more on ruminating on negative, fearful things constantly throughout the day, which is a sign, by the way, of a not healthy functioning brain, or is it more positively centered? And that's how we should be most of our day, most of our life. Seeking solutions, learning new things, challenging ourselves. But unfortunately, so many people, and again, these are all telltale signs that your brain is not working properly if you're ruminating constantly on anything, but especially if it's what we call negative rumination. You're ruminating on all the worst case scenarios, all the things that are negative in your life, without taking some time to look at the positive things, no matter what your situation might be. So this is all part of, again, how our brains operate. And so the point being is, if you're having struggles with your emotions, your behaviors, more than likely you're probably having some breakdown of those neural networks that are responsible for your cognitive functions. And usually people can relate to all three of those at the same time.
Yeah, and you're making such a generous offer to set them up so they can do some baseline testing. I'm going to share this. Of course, I want all of you to share this video with your friends, because this baseline, especially if you, like with my mom, my mom has dementia, severe dementia. Like she doesn't know who I am, but I know who she is. She doesn't know that I'm her daughter, but she knows that Lily is her daughter. And of course, Lily in her mind is a little girl, not a grown woman. So that's the misconnection. And I wonder if, you know, because I know that this is not hereditary, this is not hereditary, that I can choose my path. And I remember, um, uh, I don't know if you know Marissa. I'm trying to remember her name, but I will remember her name because I remember everything. She taught me this to manifest. I remember everything because I remember Robert would say to me, "What did you forget now? What did you forget now?" Well, I forgot my keys. Well, I forgot my phone, and well, I don't know where my phone is, and that was the symptoms that I was experiencing
Mhm.
earlier in my life, especially after the car accident. And so when I learned Marissa Pierce, so when I
Okay.
learned from Marissa Pierce, she's a coach that we what we say predicts our future. And so if we're predicting forgetfulness and memory loss, we need to rewrite the story that, we just did a webinar last year on rewriting the story before the holidays got really busy. And so rewriting the story is very important in what we say. So I want to add, Dr. Silva, that people that choose to do neurofeedback would benefit from rewriting the language too, some coaching. And
Mhm.
so I'll work with Dr. Silva. Maybe we can create something where we can start rewriting some of the things that are getting fixed. But if that emotion is still there and that emotion isn't being released or interpreted, that maybe that if you do the coaching with me or with anybody else,
Sure.
that there'll be an exponential improvement as well, because now you're saying, I remember everything. And instead of saying, I'm so forgetful, why would we manifest that? So
Mhm.
when it comes to social immaturity, so lack of socialization is what I'm seeing in today's Gen Z or whatever the next generation is called. They're spending more time on their phone and not interacting and engaging with others. Can um, can neurofeedback help with that?
Yes, interesting you bring that up because I just recently attended a postgraduate course and webinar,
Good.
and we're defining this again. There's no official, again, I don't really like to use the terminology diagnosis. It doesn't fit into my type of practice, never has. That's for the medical professionals to prescribe the right medication. My world, we use a lot of other natural interventions to help people, but nonetheless, we're calling it tech brain or social media brain and what's happening, especially with social media. But it could be even emails. People are obsessed, not just the kids, not just the Gen Z. We're talking adults too. I see seniors that are just constantly got to be plugged in, whether it's on a television or a tablet or a phone, need to be doing that scrolling. They need to be checking their social media, their emails, need to be checking their texts, constantly engaging themselves. And when it's not in their hands, they almost feel disconnected or lost. They need that constant stimulation. What we're realizing from a biochemical standpoint, it's really no different than any addiction which stimulates dopamine. So every time you're logging into social media or checking several posts, you're getting these little tiny dopamine hits. No different. And I'm not saying people are going to be at this as a drug addict, but the biochemistry and the electrophysiology of what's going on in the brain with social media, just as an example, is really no different than a drug addict trying to find their next fix with whatever drug they're addicted to. We're realizing the brain chemistry, the brain electrophysiology is in essence the same. And we're all guilty of it to some extent, but I'm seeing again, especially the Gen Z, they can't put it down. And when they do, they get irritated, frustrated. They're constantly, it's these little dopamine hits that our brain is getting. And it starts to thrive on that. And the next thing you know, you've developed this addiction that you didn't even realize is a thing. It really is. And yes, to answer your question, neurofeedback can help with that. as well as other addictions. And I've worked with
Yeah,
people with
yeah,
other
other
types.
addictions too. That's great. I mean, but there was a movie or a documentary called Social Experiment or something to that effect, that it was designed, social media, that was designed to hook you like a drug.
Yes. Yeah, because why? Now they can put pop-up ads in front of you, so now you're constantly being marketed to, and especially with the algorithms nowadays. Oh my goodness! I was just commenting to my wife this morning that I don't use Facebook all that often, other than Marketplace when I'm either looking to buy something from someone or sell something. But occasionally I'll just scroll through to see what my family friends might be doing. But now it's gotten to such a point where if you even just pause your scroll on an advertisement or even a picture of something,
You think about
within
it.
seconds, you're seeing it constantly repeated in your Facebook feed. And I don't know how other people are not noticing this, but it's so evident to
You
me.
need
Maybe
to
because I
go
don't use it as
incognito.
often.
Go incognito.
Oh
Go
my gosh,
incognito.
it's
When you do your
ridiculous.
Google search, go incognito. I am incognito. And then it's a hassle because you have to kind of like opt in because they make it hard for you
Okay,
to go
I'll have to keep that in
incognito.
mind.
So what's interesting is I was having a conversation with someone I know, and my phone wasn't even in the room. We were having dinner,
Oh yeah.
and we were talking about a product that she got 3 years prior, and she was working on this. It was about taking negatives. You remember the film negatives? And
Yeah,
she was
yeah.
turning it into a digital copy with this that next day. I had something on Facebook with that particular thing. I kid you not. They're stealing our information, and then we're buying it through social media. We're buying it through social media by buying ads or whatever it is. But this is information we're freely giving them if we don't protect ourselves. So we need to
But
protect
so
ourselves.
important to have balance in life and just unplug. What I literally mean, put your device down, connect with Mother Nature, go outside, take in the fresh air, go for a walk, ground yourself, kick your shoes off if you can, depending on where you are, reconnect with Mother Nature, reconnect with others outside of the digital realm. Again, even then, we all sit. It's what's sad is you see people at a restaurant, spouses or whole families, and they're all just
No
not
phones.
communicating with each other. They're eating their meal or waiting for their meal, and they're all on their devices doing their own separate thing. It's so sad, and it's yeah, there was some design behind all this. And tell you what, for the people behind this, they knew human psychology, they knew neuroscience very well. These are smart people, and I'm sure they're paid a lot of money. But hey, something I wanted to touch on
Yeah.
before we wrap up today's webinar. Um, if you have, and I want to talk about some of the causes. How do we get to this point in life where we're
Yeah.
having cognitive issues? Again, it could be emotional,
Sure.
behavioral, and those are signs as well that your brain is not doing well. But if you have any other underlying medical conditions, such as high blood pressure, diabetes, metabolic issues, again, diabetes would fit that category, that's a good sign that you probably are not getting good blood flow. Perhaps you have blood glucose dysregulation. You know, it's not only affecting your body, your heart, your vascular system, but your brain and your nervous system is very sensitive to it as well. So that alone is enough of a sign to say, you know, I need to get my brain checked because I have diabetes or I have blood pressure issues. And I'll give you an example just recently, and this is a condition I've been treating for years. I help a lot of people and have helped a lot of people for decades now with a condition called peripheral neuropathy. It's often referred to as diabetic neuropathy because it's commonly associated with people who have type 2 diabetes, but I've also worked with clients who have no type 2 diabetes, or maybe they're pre-diabetic and still have peripheral neuropathy. So what is it? It basically is symptoms of usually the lower extremities, can be the hands and upper extremities as well. But these people will experience like foot numbness, tingling, abnormal sensations that they describe as almost, I've had people describe it as like ants walking on their feet, or things that they can't even put in words, what we call paresthesia. Or they may have frequent muscle cramps or muscle spasms. And what this is, it comes down to is a degradation, destruction of the peripheral nerves. These are the nerves that extend beyond the spinal cord out into the periphery, into our extremities, to our organs, to our glands. These are the nerves that make our connection from our brain, spinal cord, to the rest of our body. And underlying metabolic issues can cause a lack of blood flow to these nerves. And of course, things like blood glucose dysregulation can cause inflammation that destroy these nerves. And the best way I describe it is these nerves start to short circuit, and that will then manifest in these symptoms. Again, the burning sensations, the pain, the cramping, the muscle spasms, the paresthesias. Point being is I just recently had a client, and I've always told my clients who come to see me specifically for that problem. And by the way, there's natural solutions outside of traditional medicine to help you actually rehabilitate those nerves, improve circulation to those nerves. And again, we're at a place just like with the brain and neurofeedback, you can do a lot of these interventions from the convenience and comfort of home. I know that wasn't today's discussion, but I'm bringing this up because over the years that I've been working with people with peripheral neuropathy, I always told them that, look, if your nerves are destroyed down in your feet or in your hands to this extent where you're feeling these symptoms of peripheral neuropathy, consider the rest of your nervous system in your brain. Again, they're nerves nonetheless. Yeah, they may be a different structure, a different function, but we have billions of those nerves in our brain. That's what makes up our brain. That's how we function. So if it's happening in your feet, it's pretty good sign that it's probably happening in your brain as well. So I make that connection between someone having peripheral neuropathy symptoms in their feet to their brain, and usually they'll start to converge. They'll start to open up and say, "Yeah, I'm forgetting a lot. I've been suffering depression my whole life, or I'm having memory issues." It's all part of the same nervous system. What's happening down there in the feet because of a metabolic issue, inflammation, and poor blood flow, it's more than likely happening in your brain. So you should probably get that looked after as well. Yeah.
Wow.
And again, I just had someone just recently, I think in her early 70s, peripheral neuropathy symptoms. She's really concerned about that. And when we were doing a thorough case history and consultation, I started to ask her, hey, tell me about your history of depression. Tell me about your anxiety, your sleeplessness. Next thing you know, hey, what's going down in your feet, which we just measured on an exam to see how bad it was. We need to look at your brain now because it's just part of
Wow.
the same nervous system, just at opposite ends of the body. Okay, so
It's
I
all
wanted to put that
connected.
out. Yeah,
No, that's really good. What are other things real quickly that you can highlight? Because if somebody has that kind of neuropathy in their feet or their hands, or they're experiencing other symptoms, what are some of the things that people might be able to relate to right now that
medications,
medications? Very good.
common medications will also, for lack of a better word, slowly degrade or destroy your nerves, whether it be your brain, body, and both. Things like sedatives for anxiety and panic, some of the antidepressants. These all interfere with brain and neurological function. So be cautious. Again, I'm not saying come off your medications, but especially for those that are taking multiple medications,
Yeah.
you need to look at your brain. You really
Yeah.
do. It's having a detrimental effect on your entire nervous system, and your brain is the biggest part of that. Nutritional deficiencies. Okay. Yeah, you might be eating so-called well-rounded meals and getting 3 squares a day, but what are you truly eating?
Yeah.
Is it healthy, wholesome food? Are you eating a lot of foods that are processed, overly processed, full of chemicals and additives that are becoming toxic for your body, driving inflammation up in your body, causing the metabolic issues such as diabetes, and also affecting your brain? And we can measure for a lot of this stuff, by the way. Yes, so nutritional deficiencies. In fact, with the QEEG, we can actually, part of the interpretation is actually analyzing where a person may have imbalances or deficiencies in certain nutrients, like your B vitamins, your C, more specific stuff like acetyl L-carnitine or choline. So we can actually look at that data from a QEEG to see where there may be some deficiencies. And of course, easy solution for that is let's start getting you on some good supplementation to fill in those holes, those gaps where your brain is starved of those nutrients.
No, I love it. This is a really good way to start the year, Dr. Silva. I hope that today's conversation is a wake-up call for all of us that have been kind of laughing at forgetfulness or laughing at, little things that tingling or, I'm just getting older or I'm just forgetful. And, I hope that this conversation puts kind of like an awareness that there's something I can do about it. And so I want to encourage all of you, once again, you know, we'll try to figure out how we're going to do this. I might just send you the link myself or put the link in the description where you can get the 45-minute conversation with Dr. Silva and go from there. But there's just so many ways that we can reverse, reduce, whatever it is that you want, this time in our life where we're feeling so forgetful and not understanding what is going on. And just a simple call with Dr. Silva. I'm just so grateful to you, Dr. Silva. You're making this so easy for all of us, especially starting 2026. This is a great way to get started for the year, and I'm looking forward to our next webinar. This is the classroom. The classroom is free. The webinar, we'll figure out what we're going to do next, but it's time. It's time, Dr. Silva, and you are amazing to explain everything the way it does, so that you do. So once again, you could go to drsilva.com if you want to learn more about Dr. Silva. His number is 772-494-2576, right there, right behind me, and right by Dr. Silva's information right there. And also you can email him at info@drsilva.com, or you can just email me. Either way, let's get you started in your journey with us. So Dr. Silva, thank you so much for everything that you do. Any last words before we go? We got 30 seconds.
Yeah, just go ahead and schedule that call. Be sure that when you do arrive to the call that you heard about us on today's classroom, and we'll do a Zoom call. I'll bring up the chart that I'm looking at right now. Let's just have a discussion about your brain. Let's just have a casual discussion and look to see, all right, what's the next best step? And again, I'm offering for anyone for the year of 2026 at no cost that consultation, that conversation with you about your brain. But even deeper, let's look at your cognitive performance. Let's do those cognitive performance tests from the convenience of home.
Absolutely.
Hey, step in the right direction.
Thank you so much, Dr. Silva. You're amazing. I'm so grateful that you in the classroom. I was so excited to see you today and start a new year with you and helping people restore the wiring in their brain so that they can rewire and feel really connected to self and others and even God. So thank you, Dr. Silva. It was a great class today. I'm so glad that we're getting started in 2026. And we're going to get ahead of any cognitive issues that we're having. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure.
And please remember, we'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. This is Lily McDermott and Dr. John Silva wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. Yeah, good job, good job.
The opinions and advice expressed on the Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before taking any steps to improve your life.